Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Gwen Smith, editor and content chief of Allergic Living, where we spend so much time covering all the issues of importance to the allergy community. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Dr. Sung Poblete, who is the relatively new CEO of FARE, Food Allergy Research and Education. So welcome, Dr. Poblete.
Thank you, Gwen, for having me. This is really personal for me, so I'm looking forward to talking with you and just exploring ways in which we can really help the allergic community at large.
That's great. And in fact, I'll just give people a sense of what we are going to talk about today. And for starters, we're going to be talking about a dramatic new documentary that FARE will soon release. I think people will be really interested to hear about that. Also, as you're saying, just why food allergies are a professional, but also personal interest to you. As well, we'll talk some about the crying need for research and advancement in therapies for food allergies. Now, let's just introduce you a bit to Allergic Living followers. You joined FARE in 2022, correct?
I've been at FAIR for about 18 months now, so I can't say I'm the new CEO. I
Okay,
just say I am CEO. Yes.
newish. Um,
Newish. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I think if anyone doesn't know, it's really interesting that you spent about a decade as CEO of Stand Up to Cancer. So that's a really definitely heavy duty background. And can you explain for us the doctor in your title?
Absolutely. I think I've spent most of my adult life at Rutgers University. I've obtained my bachelor's in science, focusing on nursing, and then my master's in maternal child nursing, and then my PhD is in nursing research. So that thus the doctor title. And in the span of more than 20 plus years, I've been either an instructor, an adjunct professor, or currently I am a visiting associate professor.
Wow. So that's quite an impressive background, Sung, I must say. Um, Talk to us
It
about.
really makes me, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's great. And all that, even the maternal aspects of the background are very interesting to where you are now. So tell us about this. What has brought you at this stage in life to the field of food allergy?
I am a food allergy patient myself. I have life-threatening food allergies. And, you know, the time that I spent at Stand Up to Cancer, the rationale for joining Stand Up was because it was something that touched me so profoundly. I had about 7 people in my immediate circle who were diagnosed with cancer. And I didn't want to be on the sidelines anymore. I wanted to understand how to accelerate the pace of treatment options so that we could save lives now. Similarly, because I have life threatening food allergies and realizing I wasn't alone, I wanted to jump in and say, okay, all this great knowledge and experience I have from Rutgers University, from Stand Up to Cancer, and elsewhere, how can I galvanize, bring that to the food allergic community? So I'm here for the community, but I also want to benefit myself and find some treatment options.
Well, that's very near and dear to a lot of our hearts. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal food allergy story?
I certainly can. I am that typical atopic March kid. Had atopic dermatitis when I was born. My parents really couldn't understand what was going on because I was a little cranky, I guess. I was crying all the time. And finally, when they diagnosed me with atopic dermatitis, my parents knew what they needed to do to just subside some of the itching and just, the inflammation of my skin. And then I developed asthma, which was no picnic for my parents. And I thought, wow, I really, kind of missed out on that third, March of food allergies. And then as an adult, I ended up with life-threatening food allergies. And what's really scary for me, I know that I'm allergic to cherries and cantaloupes, but there is a third food allergen that we have not been able to pinpoint. So, talk about the fact that I'm the CEO of FAIR, and within the last 4 months, I've had 7 episodes where I needed my EpiPen.
Holy cow.
And
That's the hardest right there, Sung, is, it's funny. We sometimes talk about how it's difficult to have food allergies, but I know from my own personal experience, the worst is when you don't know what the trigger is, because then you can't stop it. For instance, I'm allergic to shellfish, and which I found out at one point, and then later we figured out that I was allergic to peanut and to soy. But soy was the hardest because, when we eat as adults, it's complicated. It's not like children where you might be introducing a food at a time, or you just gave the kid a peanut butter sandwich, so it was kind of obvious it was peanut or it was wheat. But with soy, I mean, I went through almost 8 weeks of barely being able to eat, being put on a fairly high dose of antihistamine. So I would stop, as my allergist said, anaphylaxing all over the place. So I'm really feeling for you, because that is hard. And, I mean, it's one way we can motivate our CEO at FAIR, I'm sure, but that's a really tough thing. So I really wish you well with that, in terms of, trying to get to the bottom of it, because I'm sure you're not finding that easy at all.
it's not, because, food is very social, as we all know, and the whole joy of sharing food. Well, my friends have been benefiting, because you know what? I've been having dinner parties at home so that I know exactly what the ingredients are
Yeah.
when I'm cooking. But the whole idea of going out socially has been a bit dampened. And I talk to my friends, my family about being vulnerable, right? But with the food allergies, it's a different kind of vulnerability. It's involuntary. This is not what I want to be, vulnerable in an involuntary way where there's no certainty, there's no control over my own environment. So, this is what we want to change at FAIR for the journey of a food allergic patient.
Well, even to have better diagnosis, for instance, when we have to say, a lot of it's through trial and error with the allergists, they can't even count fully on the tests that we do have, because there's quite a big margin for error. I mean, we even had recently that some of the extracts may not be reliable at all times. So it's a difficult thing. And if you're trying to figure out, in your case, it makes it extra hard when you just have that one trigger that you don't know. But, I think it's also fascinating, and I'll be interested to see if FAIR does much with it, but that for so long, the emphasis in the food allergy community has been, rightly, I would say, to a large degree, on children, because that's where we saw the real explosion of food allergy. But now with Dr. Gupta's team's study at Northwestern, we're hearing it may be as much as 10% of the U.S. population that has adult food allergies. So, and a lot of that is adult onset. So, this is an area. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? We don't know much yet, do we, about why adults can lose tolerance, right?
It's obviously a immunologic problem, and I think most of us don't realize, in the general public, if you have a food allergy, you get it. It is a disease. It's not a diet. But to the rest of the universe, I I don't think they understand the serious nature of life-threatening food allergies. And we've got to educate them, but we also need to increase awareness so that we can rally the government and funders to put more investment into the food allergy space, we don't know a lot. And that's because the investment is suboptimal.
Yes, we definitely hear that. Even with kids who are more studied, so far we've only got one FDA approved treatment for peanut allergy. That's the Palforzia OIT product. What are your thoughts on that? Where do we need to get to with this disease?
We need more funding in what I call proximal translational research. There's been a great deal of discoveries that have been made within the immunologic space. And I think we can learn from adjacent fields and disciplines. We haven't really had a convergent approach where we're bringing in the physical scientists and the biological scientists to solve real problems. And I think that's what we need in our food allergy scientific community. One of the more exciting things that FAIR has done is to put together a scientific advisory council, and we have the physical scientists like Dr. Regina Barzilay, who's an expert in machine learning and AI from MIT. We have microbiome experts, and of course we have the food allergy experts. But think about this, Gwen. We have Dr. Jim Allison, who won the Nobel Prize for Cancer Immunology.
Wow.
Think about his perspective on what's going on with our innate immune system, and know that, whether we're talking about an immune system focused on cancers or food allergies or atopic disease, it's all interrelated and our bodies are not compartmentalized. So why not learn from the brightest minds and see if we can apply that to our food allergy research? I'm also really excited to mention that Nobel laureate Philip Sharp has joined FAIR as a special advisor. Now, his claim to fame was splicing RNA, and you see so much of the technologies in the biotech industry around his innovations. Imagine what he could do for FAIR and food allergies. So lots of bright minds that are interested in coming into the food allergy space. We now just need some funding to really catapult this into an arena where we can get multiple treatments. Shots on goal. That's what I call it.
Well, that's impressive and hopeful. So we'll be definitely watching to see where these things go. But let's turn our attention now. I mentioned at the outset that you've got this powerful new documentary that FAIR has produced. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're the executive producer. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. And it's a short documentary, and we are being considered for the Academy Award. And it's funny because I mentioned this to a couple of our scientific advisors, and they all got excited. The Academy of Science and Medicine, I'm a member. I'll vote for. I'm like, no, wrong Academy
Award.
And you should see the disappointment in their faces. Like, it's not our Academy. I'm like, no.
Yeah, the wrong crowd there for the excitement. I think we'll be excited to see if that moves forward with the other Academy, the Oscars. But so when will you know on that? Whether you I guess, would this be the short documentary that you're contending for?
Short film, yes, documentary, and we'll know on or around December 21st whether we will be further considered for the Academy. And as they say in Hollywood, you know what? If we were just nominated, that would be amazing, because it's about building awareness.
Yeah. And tell us about the title and what that means to you.
The title is very simple. It's a disease, not a diet. And it's a telltale title in terms of where we are in terms of culture. Everyone thinks, I should first of all say this. I was talking to our teen advisory group, and, they had a little skit about, I'm not a Karen. meaning if you are at a restaurant and you're, giving very explicit, instructions in terms of what you can or cannot have, they feel, the power to advocate for themselves, but they all can see the facial expressions like, oh my God, here we go again. And so the kids were like, it's a double-edged sword. You want normalcy, but then you don't want to be viewed as this difficult individual named Karen. And I apologize for all the Karens in the world. It's a meme.
Yeah.
But, I think it sort of stemmed from that, letting the general public understand, yeah, no, it's not a diet. It's not a preference. Like
Yeah.
this is life defining, life threatening for all of us. So it's about the fact that we're dealing with a disease, not a diet.
Well, and what I found interesting, I've been fortunate that I got to have a preview of it. And what I found so fascinating in the doc is that you don't sugarcoat things. You're talking about life on high alert in this doc. And it is true what we live. I mean, we try very hard. It's like you just said about the kids. We try to make life normal as much as we can. But people then don't always appreciate the difficulty and the fact that any bite that we're two people sitting here, and any bite that we take, we have to know what's in that. Try living that 7 days a week, 24/7. It's just very challenging, and it's not easy. And I liked, there was almost a starkness even in the shooting of this documentary. So it's not going to be your warm and fuzzy documentary, but I mean, the messaging there, you guys must have thought about this a lot, but it seems to me that it's kind of bold. Like it's like that you've pointedly gone there to saying this is not some simple, easy condition, and we're not fussy people.
I think people don't understand the burden of disease unless you or your loved one is living through it. I keep mentioning involuntary vulnerability, and I stole that from Peter Atwater. He's an incredible writer, professor, and it's how he describes, the food allergy journey. We talk about vulnerability, but for us with life-threatening food allergies, it's involuntary. We don't choose to be vulnerable.
No,
Yet
nobody
it's
does.
dark,
Yeah. And that's why I
right?
love the title, because the disease, not a diet. In fact, you're so speaking to the converted here. I did a poster a few years back, and it's been one of the most popular posters. We have like 2 different versions of it. And it basically scratches out, my food allergies are, and it says lifestyle diet scratched out, and it says a severe disease, and so we're talking on definitely on the same page there, that just, but we all know it's challenging to get this disease taken seriously. I mean, you mentioned in the documentary the aspect of, kids can be such a target of bullying. And, I think about the fact that you also say on dining, when one person has the allergy, everyone has the allergy. If people don't understand that, can you explain what your experience is of that and what you mean by that?
For me personally, and for us at FAIR, we want an inclusive dining table. So when I say if one person at the table has that food allergy, we all share that food allergy. I'll quote one of my board members who said it in a really hilarious way. I can't use the foul language, but it's like this. His son has a weed allergy. And, the table, they love, going to this incredible restaurant where they have the best breads. And he said, I'm not going to be a blankly blank dad and go and grab that bread and just go, oh, this is so amazing. We're all going to have, gluten-free bread, and it's tough and it's not as great, but you know what? We're not going to be that parent where we're not going to be, inclusive to our own son. And I think that's a really great example. One of the most joyous things for me is hosting dinners. And Gwen, if you're ever in DC, I would love to host you. Just let me
That
know what your food allergies are, and I will accommodate you. But for me, yeah, no, it's so much fun for me to create recipes, taking out allergens. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend who's staying with me for the next couple of days. He has, of all things, allergies to garlic. And imagine his life. He can't eat anywhere.
and increasingly we hear about that one. I have a friend with that too, but I thought having to avoid soy would be bad, but I love garlic. It's funny because
No.
sometimes also you have an aversion with an allergy and sometimes you don't. I don't talk about mine all that much as a rule, but I am here. And it's funny, I would have shrimp tomorrow if shrimp wouldn't kill me, but probably my worst anaphylactic reaction, and they had the crash cart out and the whole thing was shrimp that I'd made myself, I might add. So,
No.
oh, I know. There was a nice trip to, I was living in Tampa at the time. So there I was at Tampa General. So it was not easy. But, Sung, you come from the cancer field. Everyone, as we talk about this, everyone gets that that's life-threatening. Were you surprised coming to food allergy that it seems the polar opposite, that people often don't get the severity? You're talking about the funding is poor, whereas cancer, again, everybody gets the importance of that. Like, how has it seemed odd to you? How has it seemed?
Well, if you think about the fact that 33 million Americans are living with life-threatening food allergies, it's shocking to me that it has not become a first-tier issue in this country. Just in the last year, I've quickly realized that food allergies is really a silent public health epidemic. That's what we're dealing with.
I think you're
So,
right.
what yeah, one of the things that we really have to do as a community is to make this a first tier issue, and we need our policymakers, we need everyone to understand that. I think for my friends who are really empathetic and lovely human beings, I don't think they realized how severe it was or how life threatening it was until they actually saw me during an episode. And can I tell you, it scared them so much. And they felt so helpless.
Yeah.
And so now I make them donors to FAIR, and I ask them to help
Yeah.
advocate in their own world. But I know that, recognizing food allergies is important as well. And if we could all have that empathy, if we can all have that knowledge to save a life, I think this world will be a little bit more fair. Don't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, we're dealing with just far too much. I guess it's a little bit on my mind because we came back to that student in Texas and his family this week. And he's facing, this is the young man who, on his own football team, was targeted, and they contaminated his locker with peanuts, and he only had a skin reaction because fortunately he didn't ingest any peanut, but he got it on his skin, got bad hives. But he knows how risky it was, and it was very a very disturbing incident. And yet the perpetrators have only had a slap on the wrist. And his family remains very concerned because he's still being targeted. He's being told, why can't you just let this go? Instead of, this is at a school district where other bullying, you can be sent to an alternative school entirely or expelled. And yet over an incident like this, and this is just one incident of so many when we see the stats on that. And and I think so much of this comes out of what you're talking about, which is just the lack of awareness and the lack of education. And, I say that as somebody who's been trying for, the better part of 15 years through what we do. And as a professional journalist to raise awareness, it gets frustrating sometimes that it seems so hard for people to get it. But I think you're absolutely right that we have to really keep focused on that. And just to come back to your documentary for a second, I think that will do a great job of helping toward that end. Can you tell us, is the messaging there, is this really for the food allergy community, or is this for the wider community? Who are you aiming this documentary at?
This is for the wider community. Fortunately or unfortunately, those who live with life-threatening food allergies and those around, they will hear their own story in this documentary. It doesn't matter whether you're a mother protecting your child or children from food allergies. It could be an adult. It could be any individual. They will hear themselves and go, oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what I think of when I'm at a restaurant. That's exactly the questions that I have in my mind. And yes, I'm worried for my child because they're being bullied. All of that will resonate with the food allergy community. We want that messaging to go out wide for those that may not be immediately touched by food allergies. We want them to have our perspective.
Dr. Poblete, we're closing out 2023. You're looking ahead to 2024. What's your big hope and ambition for FARE and food allergy in the next year, and obviously farther ahead than that, but even in the next year?
I want to make certain that everyone understands that we will never, ever, ever drop the ball when it comes to providing advocacy and education. We want to be with you throughout your food allergy journey, and we will support that. But one area where I think we can really knock it out of the park is the siloed research. As we protect and as we help you throughout your food allergy journey, we don't want to do this forever, right? We want to find new treatment options. We want to find a cure one day. And we're going to be heavily investing and focusing on that. We want to make certain that there's investors, there's pharmaceutical companies, diagnostic companies, all working together and being excited about solving for this. If we don't advocate for ourselves in the treatment and cure arena, nobody else will. So we're going to be extra loud, Gwen, in 2024. And we want solutions. We want solutions for our community. And we're not just talking about treatment options here. We also want the bullying and the anxiety to go away. And we need everyone rallying for us. And I'll end with this. We, had a child who talked about the fact that he had a peanut allergy and his friends, would throw peanuts at him in the cafeteria. Well, I'm sorry, that is not acceptable. And I think that people don't realize it's life-threatening. It's like throwing some kind of dangerous weapon at this child. What if he turned around, had his mouth open, and it shot into his mouth? I mean, there's so many really stupid people out there that don't understand the gravity and the seriousness of this. And maybe I shouldn't have said stupid, not educated, but this is me being angry for that high school student who had to endure, as we've said, only a rash, but you realize that's irrational. Yeah. It's just a rash. So,
yeah, well, and it can be worse, and it's debilitating for someone to think that's supposed to be my friend, and that's what they're doing, because it's just something you wouldn't do that to someone with a different disease. But with this, it's it's just overlooked. We sometimes in this community refer to it as the Rodney Dangerfield of diseases, just, gets no respect. But I think you're absolutely right. It's time for that respect, and it's let's all be loud. I'm for that.
You know what? We should adopt the Aretha Franklin respect song. How's that?
Well, that's a much better. I like that more. That would be good. Anyway, listen, Sung Poblete, an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. So the documentary, just so because people are going to come and ask me, we think it probably will be out sort of the end of December or early January. Is that correct?
Most likely early January,
Okay.
unless we are considered for the next round.
Oh, I
and
see.
then,
Right. So that's
yeah.
why it's a little uncertain.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sounds very good. Again,
You'll hear from us first, Gwen. I
pardon me?
promise. You will hear from us first.
Okay, and we will definitely spread the word. Anyway, Sung Poblete, just delightful to speak to you today, and really informative. So thanks a great deal for your time, and we'll all be loud and we'll be watching.
Thank you so much, Gwen.